Hello, and thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to join me. I hope that there is something within this video that is a benefit to you or to somebody that you know. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with others. I want to say also thank you very much. This is, of course, my 50th episode. Not necessarily, this episode's going to cover something I wasn't necessarily thinking of covering for my 50th episode, but it looks like this is where it's going to go. With current events going on, part of a sign of poor leadership is a lack of direction, or direction to lead those who follow you. I refer to John C. Maxwell and his 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, the law of navigation. In it, he says anyone can steer a ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. The statement can go a lot of ways. One being when Biden says one thing and the White House walks it back, saying that he didn't mean what he meant to say. How often has this happened over the past, going on a year and a half? How are they planning for the future of my country and my grandkids? An example that worries me is the total victory condition in Ukraine. I mentioned this in my last video. But we're not at war, let alone close to know what total victory is in a war that we are not involved in. But while the government wants to take our guns away, they want to send billions to other countries so that they can buy guns. Afghanistan just actually recently had a parade. Let's not forget about all those wonderful weapons and military gear that we gave them as well. Guns are something that is much a part of our country as who we are, as the Constitution itself is. And here we have a president who says that the Second Amendment is not absolute. What worries me most of all the statements this man has said, that worries me a lot. The First Amendment will be next with the way that he's been saying in God's name, for God's sake. I kept expecting lightning to strike. An armed society is a polite society. Now I have said, and I will quite a bit say, that communism looks good on paper, where it should stay. A theory to discuss, but not to follow. In practice, it leads to death on a scale that is only rivaled by war and other forms of bloodshed. But there is one thing that Karl Marx said that I agree with. That under no pretext should arms and ammunition be surrendered. Any attempts to disarm the people should be stopped, by force if necessary. This is a quote directly from the Communist Manifesto. I know I have the American flag and I'm quoting the Communist Manifesto, but sometimes they actually say things that make sense and that we can agree on. And now, like I've said about the only thing I agree with Karl Marx is that statement about under no circumstances should arms and ammunition be surrendered. Because there's no way that you can get me to agree that a command economy is a good thing under any situation. These shootings, to me, if nothing else, say that we do not need to enforce gun regulations as Biden claims, or is claiming. Let's look at how well that worked in 1989 with Biden's crime bill. That is a bill put forth by Biden. So again, look at his leadership or past leadership in history. And that way you should have a good idea of being able to figure out how he'll lead in the future. The only thing I plan at the moment to say about mass shootings is we have had up to 212 mass shootings to date as of me writing this episode, this year alone. Most of these, of course, are gang shootings admitted, but they are with illegally acquired guns. Of the mass shootings, which involve 4 or more people, 40% of those result in no known suspects. Or of the mass shootings that we know of, the suspects, that is, 74% of them were black. As far as the Second Amendment is concerned, in my opinion, is that we do not need more restrictions. But mandatory training of the population, I've heard some people recommend that. Unfortunately, I could see its benefits in both cases as a possible restriction to gun ownership or a well-regulated militia. But even to say that you must show proof of passing a gun safety course. As I said, this is a restriction. It should be voluntary. But you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. That fear which will keep you up at night is the idea that your kids' lives are in the hands of some depraved killer who has no regard for their own life, let alone your children. Even worse, the people who you expect to protect the children hold back from trying to protect them. Even worse, when the people who you expect to protect the kids hold back from trying to protect them. Banks and museums have armed guards and alarms set on fire exits. So why do we protect our assets more than we protect our children, our real future, America's future? Let me ask you this question. Why do we have armed guards at banks or museums? Why do we protect our assets more than our children? Why do teachers at school not follow security protocols? Usually when you're looking at a tragedy, it's a lot of little things that have happened to occur in a chain of events that occur or that cause something like to happen. Like a chain of little things that in other situations would have meant nothing, been caught, not caused any trouble. But because of the chain of events happened the way that they did, it ended in tragedy. Such as a plane falling out of the sky or a Texas school shooting. With regards to the Uvalde school shooting in Texas, over 600 children survived that tragic encounter with a deranged gunman. Where to start with this, as it could be a case study for poor leadership in and of itself, of cowardice even. Even the officials say that they did wrong. I've been doing some research into this from the officials themselves to those on scene to other news sources. To hearing about parents detained during the crisis as 19 officers boldly protected the hallway. Children had been still alive in the 2 adjoining classrooms with the shooter for over 40 minutes, according to official reports. So what went wrong? Other than believing that the state will protect you so that you need to give up your guns, or even that the state cares about you. The shooter, who will not be named here, was a troubled young man. I've heard people ask, where was the positive male influence in his life, as the mother has been said to be a drug user. But she did have a live-in boyfriend, who did claim that he tried to connect with the boy, but the boy kept him at a distance. He turned 18 on May 16th. He had a job at Wendy's, some reports say, but the Daily Beast reports that he was unemployed at the time. At the writing of this, it is still unsure if he was fired or quit or even worked there or not. Did, however, buy one of the rifles on the 17th and another rifle on the 18th. One of those rifles goes for $1,800. With tax, it's over $2,100 for that one rifle. It's considered to be the Cadillac of rifles. The other one was just as expensive, and he purchased 375 rounds of 5.56 ammo. It is still unclear how he paid for them, but he did purchase them online apparently. I've heard people say that he was 18 and should not be allowed to purchase guns. And I ask you then, why is it that at 18 years old you can be drafted and die for our country overseas, but you can't purchase a gun to protect our homes from invaders both foreign and domestic? So it started with him sending some private chats at about 11:20 Central Standard Time. This will all be in Central Standard Time because that's Texas time. In which he said he was going to shoot his grandmother over the cell phone bill sent to someone, a 15-year-old girl that he knew. It was in a private chat, so there was no signs for it to be detected by any kind of algorithm, according to Facebook. After shooting his grandmother in the face, she is, as of the writing of this, recovering from that. The shooter then stole his grandfather's truck. Here's where I ask you if you think more gun laws are going to stop criminals. Go ahead and leave the comment down below of what you think. I ask you, why do we call them criminals? Is it because they do not pay attention to the laws in the first place? If not for the guns, they would find other ways to kill people. Look at England and the mass stabbings that we don't hear about. The Muslims go on a stabbing spree at a park because of the gays. It is getting really bad there in England. At one point, London itself was talking about banning knives. Yeah, I listened to the Lotus Eaters and Carl Benjamin, which is where I get that information from. Anyways, so driving without a license, he stole his grandfather's truck. At 11:28, he crashed the truck into a ditch, and he took one of the two rifles. He fired a few shots at some people near a funeral home at about 11:30. The shooter then jumped an 8-foot fence and headed to the back of the school, where it seemed, according to the camera footage, a teacher had propped open the back door to the school only moments before the crash in the ditch. At 11:35, officers initially attempted to engage the shooter, and the shooter returned fire. At 11:40, the shooter entered the school through the open security door. At 11:44, the first shots were fired. The shooter then barricaded himself into a schoolroom with two adjoining classrooms of the elementary school at 12:50. 19 officers were outside the adjoining classrooms when the classroom had been fully breached, and the shooter was no longer an active shooter. 21 people lost their lives, not counting the shooter. The main question so far was why the delay in action and the detainment of parents by the police who were trying to take action. Was it a failure of training or outright cowardice? Supposedly, it was a wait for the shields or the TAC Ops team in the area that was an hour away, or an off-duty ICE officer to rush in past them. Although, again, the official reports say that the police did not breach the room while the shooter was playing heavy metal music, and there were still injured children, still alive. They didn't want to enter the room because they were afraid they were going to get hurt. This is an official quote from the Texas police. So in a country where men are women and women are equal, our politicians who believe themselves to be our social betters, and yet they cannot define what a woman is certainly they cannot define what a man is either. I even had someone tell me that he should have been in therapy, and would have helped avoid the situation. How? Like the shooter in New York, Buffalo, he was 18. The Buffalo shooter was known by the FBI, who claimed that they had been aware of him and he'd been under observation. Again, I don't see how more gun laws will help. Last I checked, murder was still illegal, and homicide, even unintentional, can land you in jail for negligence. So I ask you this question. We are still the same country that could order rifles from the Sears catalog, had gun clubs and shooting clubs at schools, and prayers and the Pledge of Allegiance said in the schools every morning. So what has changed about our culture in the past 30 years that would warrant people to go to commit mass murder of soft targets? Pick things like schools and churches. Well, I have my ideas and my opinions on the subject. But with that, I want to say, think for yourself, research things, and as Mr. Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to watch this. I hope, especially if you made it this far, please leave a comment down below. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with any others that you think that it might benefit. Thank you very much for watching my 50th episode. As I said, not quite the way I was thinking it would be going, but let me end you with this. United we stand, divided we fall. God bless you, and God bless America.